Hey guys, JD here with the Kawasaki Ultra 310 jet ski. In this video, I'm going to give you my top tips and tricks to diagnose loss of RPM and loss of boost on the Ultra 310 platform. Stay tuned. Warning: these procedures require technical knowledge and special tools. Please consult a qualified Kawasaki watercraft mechanic before attempting to install these components or service your personal watercraft on your own. Always refer to the Kawasaki Watercraft Service Manual for specific torque values and additional details. So the first thing I want to address is your oil level. Now some people might say, well, how does my oil level affect my engine's RPM? In the Ultra 310, if you overfill your oil, what happens is that oil then pukes out into the separator, makes its way into the intake, gets sucked to the supercharger, and ends up clogging up your intercooler. Overfilled oil levels mean excessive blow-by, which then mixes with water vapor to form this milky emulsified mix that plugs up the fins of your intercooler and severely reduces your engine's performance. This can be easily avoided by ensuring that your engine's oil level is not too high. Use a bubble level to fill it just right. The oil level should be directly between the high and low marks on the dipstick. Next, you're going to want to check the air filter in your factory airbox on the Ultra 310. The factory airbox contains this very coarse stainless steel mesh filter. This filter really does not stop much from getting sucked into your supercharger. It's known to build up with grease and dirt over time, and even rodents and birds can make their way into the airbox, plugging up the intake tract. Make sure to inspect your airbox and filter to rule it out as a cause of lost performance. A major cause of lost boost relates to improperly torqued hose clamps. Make sure that all hose clamps are torqued properly, including the ones from the supercharger to the intercooler, from the intercooler to the throttle body, and between the supercharger relief valve and the intercooler. These skis also feature a mechanical BOV that can become stuck, bleeding off boost prematurely. After you've inspected all hoses and clamps, make sure to check the throttle body spacer as well. This composite spacer can break, causing a boost leak at the throttle body. Since we're talking about it anyway, let's address the throttle body. So 2022 and up Ultra 310s contain a Mikuni throttle body that's now made in China. The previous generation had a Japanese-made throttle body, but at some point Kawasaki outsourced production, and the new throttle bodies are subject to a greater rate of failure. So, if you're having unexplained issues and you feel that you can't reach the top speed or top RPM, it might be due to a defective throttle position sensor within your throttle body. Check the parameters of the TPS sensor and the throttle body actuator, complete all tests specified in the owner's manual and on videos posted on JD's Waterworld, and confirm that your throttle body is functioning properly. If it's not, your only option is to replace the unit. Now, let's talk about one of the easiest components you can change that greatly affects your RPM, speed, and boost, and that is your spark plugs. To maintain peak performance, it's absolutely critical that you replace your platinum spark plugs every 25 hours. Yes, you heard me right, every 25 hours. If you're willing to settle for subpar performance, run them longer than that, or don't listen. But to maintain peak performance, these spark plugs need to be replaced often. And always use anti-seize when installing them and torque them properly, or you will regret it. Pay close attention to the condition of your spark plugs when you remove them. They should be clean, dry, and free from excessive moisture. If your plugs look like this, then chances are everything's working properly. If your plugs are wet and dark, it could indicate a problem with fueling or a problem with your ignition. Kawasaki owners can also run these Iridium CR9EIX plugs. These are a little bit cheaper than the Platinum plugs and offer a comparable level of performance. Note that with the Iridium plugs, you may have to change them every 15 hours to maintain peak performance. Always grease your spark plug boots before reinstalling them, or you will regret it. Now let's talk about the dreaded exhaust filter. Supercharged Kawasaki jet skis feature a ribbon-type exhaust filter element in their exhaust system. This filter is designed to prevent condensation from building up in the combustion chamber, but over time, these filters can break down and obstruct the flow of exhaust out of the engine. Changing these filters is very expensive. A K-Tech News bulletin suggests that you check or replace this filter every 25 hours. Replacing and inspecting this filter is a huge waste of time and money. Note that you can't just inspect the filter, you have to change 3 expensive crush gaskets each time you take the exhaust system apart. To reduce the maintenance and component failure associated with the exhaust filter, I highly recommend you delete the filter entirely and go with the Kawi Performance Exhaust Filter Delete plate. The only caveat to this plate is that you have to ensure that you clear all water out of your water boxes when you're done riding. That means you have to rev your throttle a few times aggressively to get all that water out of the water boxes, so that when the ski's stored, that water won't vaporize and travel up into your combustion chamber. Now let's take a look at the Supercharger belt and tensioner assembly. It's absolutely critical that you maintain the belt and tensioner assembly in peak condition in order to achieve the maximum performance from your Kawasaki Ultra 310 jet ski. From the factory, Kawasaki jet skis utilize a pivot bushing assembly on their tensioner to maintain a proper degree of tension on the Supercharger drive belt. This tensioner assembly must be unassembled, cleaned, and lubricated every 25 to 50 hours. The funny thing is there's no actual official procedure in the service manual for greasing these bushings. When the bushing binds, it causes your belt to lose adequate tension, meaning the belt slips and you lose boost and therefore RPM and speed. To correct the issues of the inadequate stock tensioner assembly, Kawi Performance developed this automatic tensioner. This contains a sealed Japanese-made bearing that never requires maintenance, doesn't bind, and always keeps the adequate amount of pressure on your Supercharger drive belt. In addition to the pivot bushing, the spring on the tensioner assembly contains these 2 rubber bushings. These bushings are known to seize as well and need to be unassembled and lubricated every 25 to 50 hours. Again, Kawi Performance responded to this by developing their proprietary spring mod bushings that don't require regular maintenance. Kawasaki jet skis rely on a relatively inexpensive belt to drive the Eaton TPS Supercharger. This belt must be checked regularly and replaced when any signs of fraying, tearing, or ripping become apparent. Hardcore recreational riders will want to change this belt every 50 to 100 hours, and racers will likely change this belt after every race. Let's go over the jet pump and impeller. These components are critical in maintaining peak performance. It's funny how often the jet pump and impeller are overlooked as sources of lost performance. To maximize the performance of your machine, inspect the jet pump every 25 hours. This involves checking the clearance between the impeller and the stator housing. If this clearance is out of spec, replace the housing and impeller, or have the impeller rebuilt. I also highly recommend fully rebuilding your jet pump every 150 hours, especially if your machine is used in salt water. Unlike other brands, Kawasaki jet pumps do not contain a wear ring, but instead have an integrated stainless steel liner. Because of this, when replacing the stator, you must replace the entire housing. This can lead to additional expenses. Note that even if you rebuild this pump entirely on your own, using my comprehensive guides, you can still spend upwards of $800 on the components. Skis that are ridden in shallow water with sand and rocks, skis that are left submerged in the water for extended periods of time, and skis that aren't flushed properly after use tend to experience more jet pump problems than those that are properly cared for. That brings us to the fuel pump and filter bag assembly. It's absolutely critical that you maintain your fuel pump and filter in the proper condition. Kawasaki recommends inspecting and cleaning the fuel filter bag every 25 hours of service. Unlike prior generations, 2022 and up Kawasaki Ultra 310s feature a restrictive chamber over the fuel filter, and the fuel filter itself is a finer mesh than prior generations. This requires the filter to be changed and inspected more often. When it comes to the fuel pump itself, Kawasaki utilizes a Mitsubishi UCT35 pump with a flow rate at around 110 liters per hour. In my opinion, this pump is a little bit small for high horsepower applications, so I suggest if you're going stage 2 or up, that you upgrade your fuel pump to a high flow pump, like those from Kawi Performance. Either way, if you're having fuel pump issues, verify those using a fuel pressure tester gauge. At idle, fuel pressure should be between 50 and 55 psi. Another benefit of going with an aftermarket fuel pump is the ability to use a fuel filter like this one here. This is an aftermarket filter from Kawi Performance, and you can see that it's twice the capacity of the stock filter, which means you can go longer between changes. Take the opportunity when inspecting your fuel pump and filter to check all fuel lines and fittings, and also check this breather port on your fuel tank. There's a check valve that allows air to flow in, but does not allow vapor to flow out. The breather port is located right up here, adjacent to the handlebars, under the top storage compartment cover. Always use fresh fuel in your machine and never store it with old fuel in the tank. If you have a stock machine, you'll have no issue running 90-octane gasoline. If your machine is tuned, I highly recommend running no less than 93-octane premium gasoline. 93-octane gasoline in the United States does contain a minimum of 10% ethanol, so I use a product called K100. I add a bit of this in at every fill-up, and it prevents phase separation of the fuel. I highly recommend you do some research on that product. I now want to touch on issues with water intrusion. Now you might be saying to yourself, how does water intrusion affect RPM and boost? Well, as water enters the hull, it has the potential to dampen the supercharger drive belt. When this happens, the belt will slip. Not only this, but water in the hull can become steam as a result of contacting hot surfaces of the engine. Excessive steam in the hull being aspirated into the engine can result in lost performance. So how does water get into your hull? Well, the visibility lights installed on Kawasaki jet skis had an issue where excessive amounts of water got in behind them. Also, failed hoses and failed carrier bearing assemblies are two large sources of water intrusion in the hull. Finally, I want to touch on valve lash. It's absolutely critical that you maintain the proper valve lash on your Kawasaki Ultra 310 jet ski. People cringe when I ask if they've checked their valve lash, and more often than not, the answer is no. Even dealers seem to be confused by the process of checking and reshimming these valves, even though it's been the same on all Japanese motorcycles for pretty much the last 50 years. So make sure your valve clearance is correct and reshim as necessary. If your valves are not shimmed correctly, it can result in catastrophic engine damage and lost performance. So the information I'm providing you with today is not an end-all. This isn't a complete diagnostic of every little thing it could possibly be. It is possible you have a defect in your ski or you have a problem. This happens with machines, whether it's a jet ski, a boat, a car, an airplane, a lawnmower. It doesn't matter. Machines are susceptible to problems. So I'm not going to get into a theoretical discussion today about the direct relationship between speed and RPM on something like a jet ski. And that's because there are an endless number of variables that can affect the ultimate speed of a jet ski in the water. Rider weight, wind resistance, water resistance, load condition. There's so many different things. And if you were reaching a certain RPM before and you're not now, part of it could be related just to the water conditions or the time of year. In South Florida here, it's summer. The temperature is now maybe 5 to 10 degrees hotter on average than it was 6 months ago. So that's going to affect your top speed. That's going to affect the top RPM that this vehicle can achieve. This is a 1-to-1 drive ratio. There is no transmission. So always keep that in mind. If you're chasing a couple miles an hour, it could be related to the time of year. So to have different outings with speeds varying by a couple miles an hour is not unrealistic at all for any jet ski. This has been a feature brought to you at no charge by JD's Waterworld. I'm not a professional mechanic. I'm not an online store or performance shop. I'm just a guy who loves being out on the ocean on a jet ski. And I hope that my advice will help you enjoy these machines as much as I do. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more exclusive jet ski content, only on JD's Waterworld.